Welcome to Blue Rush, our New York Giants podcast from the New York Post. This episode of Blue Rush is presented by Tri-State Cadillac Dealers. Be iconic. Visit your Cadillac showroom today. I'm Brandon London, here alongside Giants beat writer for the New York Post, Paul Schwartz, and two-time Giants Super Bowl champion Lawrence Tynes. The Giants tied the Commanders 20-20. I mean, I don't know how to feel about this. I'm like Jihad War, who said at the end, I don't know how to feel about a tie. It's not a win. It's not a loss. A lot of people online, I guess the vitriol online is like, this is a loss. I don't know how you guys feeling about this. Someone, one of y'all jump in right now because it's we got a lot to talk about from this game, a lot to unpack. Paul, let's go with Paul first. Paul, you're at the game. You're in the locker room after. What was the overall vibe from MetLife Stadium that you felt after this Giants tie?
Well, it's not a loss. You know what I mean? If it was a loss, they'd be behind Washington right now, and they're not. So it's not a loss. But yeah, I mean, as I was writing the story, I was writing it like they lost, in my head. And then I started, hearing the Washington Commander quotes, and I'm like reading their quotes and hearing what they're saying. And it's like, they're talking like they lost. And I said, oh yeah, both sides think, no one's happy with this. I covered the last Giants tie, which was in November of 1997 against Washington at FedEx Field, 7-7. It was a brutally awful game. Best remembered for, you guys remember Gus Frerotte, their quarterback?
Wow.
Who ran in for a touchdown, celebrated by slamming his head against the wall and gave himself a concussion. So I'm not making fun of concussions, but I think a lot of Giants fans feel like they gave themselves a concussion watching this game.
Yeah, it's tough. I've never tied a game, obviously, in pro football or any level of football. So it does feel like a loss. I mean, when you're obviously the way the game went, there were so many missed opportunities for the Giants. And to come out and play the way they did in the second half, Coach Coughlin famously said, opportunities are never lost. Someone else always takes them. Well, nobody took them today because they tied. But again, the opportunity was there for this Giants football team to get a big, big win and start December off on the right foot. And they just, obviously we'll discuss this as we go through the show, but the second half was about as bad as I've ever seen from this team, from this 2022 New York Giants football team on offense. It was pretty miserable.
And I think that's why, at least on our side, you feel like it is a loss because we're so used to this team being a second half football team. We're so used to this team when they went on the win streak and they were beating the teams that a lot of people at that time didn't think they could beat. They weren't making mistakes. They weren't dropping balls. They weren't messing up, shooting themselves in the foot. The play calling was on point. The coaching was on point. And I'm not saying that it's not right now, but there's a lot of times where they're in this game where it's like the coaching, the coaching can't make up for the mistakes that are being made. And that you've seen them overcome so much in the past. And now after losing, two straight, and then not coming out with a win on this one, it does feel like a loss. Did feel the energy when people were leaving the stadium. It felt like a loss in that sense. Now I know they're going to go back to the tape. You're going to go look at some things, and there's going to be the we coulda, we shoulda, and that's a situation. But when you're a team like this, and we're talking meaningful football in December, and you're talking about really getting yourself into the playoffs and really giving yourself some sort of breathing room so you're not having to win every game towards the end. This is one that slipped through the hands. And again, and when I say slip through the hands, I mean drop balls. I mean missed tackles. All those things each week, fellas, that we say that the Giants cannot do when it comes to winning football games. And it happened again. Luckily, like you say, Paul, it wasn't a loss. It wasn't a loss, but at the same time, it wasn't a win. And the way that this team's been playing, they deserve and they need wins.
Walking off the field, I asked if you guys, Kayvon Thibodeau, classic young 20s, vibe. He said, super random. He said, this felt super random. He really didn't know how to feel. O'Shane Zimenez, who played pretty well in this game, he said, it was kind of like blah, and your guy, Lawrence Graham Gano, said after he misses that field goal, and I want to get into that too, in the mindset of a kicker, having such a difficult kick to try to win the game. He said the defensive end for Washington, he lines up, he kicks it, it's short. And the defensive end for Washington, he didn't know who it was exactly. He said, looked up at Graham and said, what happens now? And Graham said, the game's over. And he said, really? He said, yeah, that's it. Graham said, yeah, that's it. That's it. We can leave now. And Kayvon also said, he said it was weird. There was no cheering and there was no booing. It was kind of like, okay, let's go. But I think really fans inside were very disgusted. Saquon Barkley had 7 carries for 3 yards in the second half. I maintain they cannot win if he doesn't not only run well, but be a dominant runner, be a force. It's just too much. I mean, I don't even know. I can't even qualify. I can't even figure out how Daniel Jones played. I mean, I don't know. At one point he was 17 for 18 and the only incompletion was a spike. I mean, how do you think he even played, Daniel?
I thought he played great. He was the only player they had on the field outside of the defense. I mean, what else is he supposed to do? He throws the ball to Slayton. Slayton's got to catch that football. He throws the deep shot, obviously early in the game that he gets. Yeah. The game book says Saquon had 1 yard in the second half, not 3. It says he has 5 carries for 1 yard. That's 7.2 inches per carry. Think about that. Like, that's hard to do. 1 yard. The offensive line was terrible in the middle. The guards and centers did not play very well overall. The tackles handled business, but the interior offensive line got, listen, they're going up against 2 really good players, but those 2 guys wrecked the running game all day. And I'm not going to put this on Saquon. There was a lot of times where he had nowhere to go. But certainly in the second half, you have to think the second drive, to me, where the game turned, the second drive of the third quarter after we strip sack Heineke, we go in, we score, we kick off, we get the ball back again, and we get a 8-yard completion to Bellinger. Okay, 2nd and 2. 3rd and 2. We didn't get it. We punted. Yeah. And the game from there took a nasty turn because you cannot give up those possessions. They just, what was it? 6 punts out and 1 missed field goal in their last 7 possessions outside of the kneel down.
Once they had this, the 20-13 lead, right? Once they had that, they had so many opportunities. You could tell 1 field goal and the game is over. Once it is a 2-score game, it is over. Now Heineke's got to throw the game. They're going to win the game, and so many chances. I mean, they got the ball on their 42. The Giants. It's a hold on Bellinger, ruins that series, right? Yep. Then they get the ball on the Washington 47. He throws to Slayton for 12 yards. Now, 47 minus 12 is what? 35. You are well within Graham Gano's field goal range.
Yes, you are.
What did you guys think about the John Feliciano taunting penalty? We know what he was trying to do. I want to hear both your guys' thoughts as players. Tell me, should he be vilified or do you understand what he did?
I'll take this one, Tynes. It's one of those things where I understand with the player. I understand the intent. But in this league, at this point, you can get mad because we root for we want to see the Giants win. We want to have an upbeat podcast. But you also understand it's just like the roughing the passing penalties. They're going to call it. They don't know your intent when they see it. The NFL, no fun league. They see it. They're going to throw it. They're going to flag you for it. And it just goes to show what you were saying, missed opportunities. That right there was a missed opportunity. Again, the intent wasn't there. You were bigging up flexing for one of your teammates who at times struggles at times and has had a heck of a season for what we thought or what people thought he was going to have. So you want to feel good for your boy. You want to big up your boy. But at the same time, is that just classic bad Giants football when the Giants are playing bad football? Because that's when that flag gets thrown, Tynes.
Yeah, that was just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. I'm not mad at Feliciano. I don't think you can be. You could tell even from the TV.
Why can't you be mad at him?
Because it's an emotional game. and he was acting on emotion to go celebrate with his teammate, and the ref had a bad day. I don't know. Maybe he missed a car payment or something.
It's the rule. He Felice, look, I'm not ripping the guy to hell, but this is the rule. You could the rule stinks. Well, first of all, John Mara is a big proponent of this.
Do you think, let me ask you this, do you think if he went with the chest flex over the bicep flex, he wouldn't have got called?
Oh, the biceps would get you in trouble.
If he went with the chest flex,
guys,
he might not have got called.
Weave through Commanders players to get to his player to flex. You can't do it. The officials are saying we're not like.
I'll say that was his biggest mistake, because I did see he ran covered about a 10 or 12 yard distance to go into the scrum. Here's a stat that sticks out to me though in the second half, and this is what Giants coaches are going to talk about. The average drive start on all the drives in the second half for the Commanders, 14-yard line. Giants, 38. So it wasn't like they had to move the ball very far to get some field goals from Graham. That's the opportunity that was lost. You're basically starting at the 40 the whole second half. That defense played their tails off. I got to give them a lot of credit. Some new guys in there, right? Zaire, am I saying that right? Gilbert, he competed.
Zion Gilbert,
Zion Gilbert, at nickel. Yeah.
Listen, he got beat a couple times, but he made some nice plays. Obviously, you missed Darnay Holmes today. But some guys stepped up and played okay. That defense continues to be on the field way too much, way too long. And the offense just can't keep a drive going. But I will hear zero Daniel Jones slander. None whatsoever. He's the only player on that team that consistently shows up every week. Sure, he had a fumble in the first half, so what? But he's the only guy. Look at his total numbers. 270 yards. He rushed for more yards than Saquon did. He made a lot of plays with his feet. He continues to put this team on his back as much as he can. But, I thought they just couldn't get the run game going. That, again, you have to. This team has to get the run game going. If they don't, obviously they don't win games.
And we've been calling for Daniel Jones, or calling for Kafka to use Daniel Jones in the run game a lot more. And I don't like it. One of the things I hate, maybe this as a receiver, is when you call those QB draws, when it's just set up for him to run. I want some sort of passing option on there. I want him to be able to scan. And you see him doing such a better job of keeping his eyes downfield, and then he'll just take off. It's like they told him and coached him up this week that, hey, this is against a D lineman with 4 first-round draft picks. That window is going to go a lot faster than what you want. And again, 12 for 71 rushing. He did a lot of great things today. And I don't the slander online is killing me when it comes to this kid right now. In past years, he kind of deserved it. But this year, I think no one should be doing anything but lifting Daniel up in that sense, and realizing that a quarterback without true weapons is he's a dead fish in the water.
It's because you played, Brandon. You understand what he's dealing with. Saquon obviously did not have a great second half, and I'm not saying the blocking was ideal, but if you're a generational type of I want to be here for life type of player, second and two, you have to get that. When they give you that ball, you have to get that. Find a way. It's never going to be blocked up perfectly. So he needs to get going. First half was great. I don't know what happened in the second half with the run game. I haven't went back and watched it, but it was bad. I mean, what they have 45 total yards to 220 in the second half. That's bad.
The big discussion point in overtime was that punt, and I think it was, I like to discuss how I felt in real time, right? He has a couple of completions to Hodgins, right? Who's playing well. He's playing well. I mean, for what he is, he's playing well. 10 yards, 12 yards, right? So it's 3rd and 3 on the Washington 45, right? Okay, they're in great shape in overtime. The time they're fine, and that they have that horrific play where Daniel gets the snap and Richie James is in the backfield and Saquon is on the backfield, and they have a meeting in the backfield, and Daniel has to just, it's technically called a sack. So I think, first of all, Brian Dable was horrified by that play.
Yep.
It's not 4th and 1, it's 4th and 3, but at 4th and 3 from the Washington 45, I immediately am thinking, I'm writing down, they're going to go for it on 4th down. When he sends out the punt team, I'm like, what are you kidding? Is he punting here? In a tie game in overtime? What is he playing for, a tie? And then my colleague, who you guys know, Steve Serby, says to me, well, I think he should punt, because if you don't get it, you are basically giving the Commanders the game. If you don't get it, they're going to get 15 yards and kick a game-winning field goal. So, I mean, what were your initial thoughts right there? Oh my God, is he punting it, or why aren't we going for it? Because, like I said, I can see it both ways. I know fans are apoplectic that he should not have punted.
Anything 4th and 1.5 and below, I'm going for it. But since they had that cluster messed up and on that third down, I think that turned him off from going for it. And it was just like, you know what? Let defense. I need you one more time. I need you guys to go. And they made the stop. They did what they were supposed to do. But Tynes it's not a Madden play call right there, in that sense. I thought I looked at that and said that was the right call for everything that had just happened in that moment.
Yeah, I would love to know if that was them playing like the Colts or the Titans, what they would have done, right? Do you question, if it wasn't a division game, do you think they go for it? I thought it was the right move. And listen, we've kicked Gillian a little bit this season. He had a great game, phenomenal game today, inside the 20 punts. So he does his job. Very next play, Kayvon damn near knocks the ball loose, sacks him on the 1 or 2 yard line. And then you're thinking, okay, well, this is why you punt the ball, right? But of course, we get the ball back. Daniel makes a couple really nice throws, one to Richie James. I mean, that was a fantastic throw. They just couldn't get close enough, obviously, for Graham to hit a field goal. That is always the tough end of the field to kick into. I don't know what the wind was doing today, but it doesn't really matter. That's just naturally the end you always go into each game with, and your distance for field goals is shorter going that way always. Of course, they won the toss and wanted the ball. It's probably why, Washington kicked that way.
Lawrence, your guy Graham said in warmups he hit a 53-yarder off the crossbar. So there you go. That's where he is targeting. You know what I mean? So look, 50, and he said, look, 50, we got to go for it. He said he thought he hit it well. He has no regrets about the way he hit it.
No, he shouldn't. He hit it straight. It was right. It would have been in if it was obviously closer, but sometimes that is a very tough end of the field to kick into.
It wasn't a lot of wind, but he said there was some wind. It's December. It's cold. Bad side of the field. I mean, it's just it's not a kick he's going to make. It's not a kick anyone's probably.
And Sly missed. Sly's been on a tear, right? Special teams player of the month. He missed going that way too. So that is always the end. People miss that.
And another thing, but people saying, well, is Daboll playing for a tie? Well, let's remember he feels if he doesn't get now you can say, look, if he doesn't feel comfortable with his quarterback on 4th and 3, then what good is it? Look, it's not a run pass option there. He's got to throw the ball or, maybe roll out or something like that. I mean, I didn't have a great amount of faith at them picking up a 4th and 3. So Daboll does have the tie in his back pocket probably there. So, maybe it's not the right time to be reckless and say, you're not losing the game, you're tying the game. It's tough, it's tough, but
it's almost like they didn't play this week, right? Like that's what it's like they didn't even play, because that was the kind of the team they were jockeying for position with. And it doesn't do them any harm tying. I know it doesn't feel good. I'm sure.
But it doesn't help with Seattle. Seattle pulls out a big win today. Don't forget, this is about playoff positioning.
Sure. NFC. Total picture. But certainly it's better than a loss.
I think, and you know what, it's one of those things on Twitter where I don't want everyone's kind of gotta back off of Brian Daboll a little bit, because it's not like he coached scared. He went for 2 against the Titans. He's remember they were calling him Brian Dayballs. Remember even New York Post, it was like big balls for the back page and all in that sense. I think at that time, I really think at that punt, the reason why was because of that mess up on that 3rd and long. On that 3rd and 3 in that situation. And talking about deep, can we go over and talk about the defense? Here's one thing that's going to hurt, and one thing that has been killing this defense, and I've been seeing it since the Detroit Lions game: crossing routes. They were trying to kill them with the stack form. It was a 3-by-1, but they'd be stacked 2 and 3. The 2nd and 3rd receiver would have a little stack formation, and then two would run right off of three's butt, and they just run that cross and shallow cross with them. I think that's what teams are trying to get with Wink Martindale, get at him. And another thing they're trying to do, they're trying to sting him with the jailbreak screens on blitzing downs. They're trying to hit them with that as well. But 5 sacks, if you would have told me, we've been talking about Giants defense needs to get pressure. Giants defense needs to get there. They were after Taylor Heineke all night. You know, he made some big boy throws. You know, he's not that bad of a quarterback. You know I said, the hype is there. And I don't think he's a franchise quarterback, but he played a pretty decent game. Scary Terry McLaurin is scary Terry McLaurin, you know. Like,
guys, we talked about it. We talked about this in the preview show. They give up 168 yards a game rushing at home. What did Washington have today? 165.
Yeah.
That cannot happen.
No.
It cannot happen.
No.
And it hasn't been talked about enough. This defense stinks against the run. I don't care 5 sacks. You can have 5 sacks. But when a team rushes for 165, this is now 7 games at home. Go do the math. They're still on that pace of 165, 67 yards a game rushing against at home. That is pitiful. You're not going to win. And they've won some of those games. They've won a lot of them. But, man, if they could just clean that up a little bit, you feel like they could maybe, keep them off the field. But Washington leads the league in drives against, plays against, right? We talked about that on the previous show. The offense only averages about 4.8 or 5 plays per drive. That's why there's a big discrepancy, 41 minutes to 20, whatever the hell the number is for the Giants. They have to somehow get this out of whack or fix this because that defense, they're on the field too much. They're on the field way too long, and they're getting run on and they get tired. But they certainly need to fix that run defense. It's been a problem all season.
Well, they're going to have several new inside linebackers next year. There's no doubt about it. There's no, and look, you can talk about whatever. They had a low draft pick, Darian Beavers, who would have been a starting inside linebacker, and he tore his ACL. He would have been. Now, he wasn't a first round pick. Would he have been a great player? But he was early in camp. It was like, we like this guy. We are getting him ready. And, when they got rid of Blake Martinez, it's like, we like this guy, and he got hurt. So that's for next year, obviously. Look, Aziz Ojulari, we have to, I understand the run defense was not good. Aziz in limited snaps looked like he was shot out of a cannon. Great strip sack. And, Kayvon is definitely showing his first round chops. That's exciting. That is exciting that maybe down the stretch they can, what else, guys? I was thinking when they were getting all that edge pressure and, crossing routes, as you said, Brandon, man, Adoree Jackson and Xavier, two guys who went out with injuries that could have been avoided. And it's just, they win that game with those two guys. They don't have enough on the back end. They don't do well at stopping the run. I think Julian Love is playing well. He's overextended, don't you think? He's all over the place. He misses a tackle or two because he's got to do everything. So, look, there's no cavalry charge. Those guys are not coming back anytime soon. But that's the problem. Mike Kafka has to deal with plug holes in areas like interior of the offensive line and really not productive wide receivers for the most part. And Wink Martindale has to say, look, we're signing guys off the practice squad. When Fabian Moreau, who I know you guys like, but when he is your number one cornerback, it's tough against Terry McLaurin. It's really tough. He's supposed to be a 2 or 3. So, they're doing what they can with this roster. And, as we mentioned, the last few weeks, every win now is going to be hard to come by. Every single one of them. And they definitely let one, slip through their fingers, but this is one that was winnable. It was next week against the Eagles going to be winnable. I have no idea. This was there. If they just made a few plays on offense, a few.
That's all they needed.
Yeah, that's all they needed. They needed one field goal. They needed 1 or 2 plays, as you said, Lawrence. It's not like they're getting backed up. Tressway is backing them up at the 10-yard line.
That wasn't 38-yard line was their average drive start in the second half. That's crazy to me.
That's
with a field goal kicker. Once you get past midfield, he's dynamite.
Missed opportunity for sure.
You talk about plugging those holes. Adoree Jackson being out. Julian Love having to be all over the field. They're 1-2-1 since Xavier McKinney went out. So that's another big hole, big shoe, big cleat that needs to be filled in that sense. And I mean, and times you keep bringing up that, well, what, $168 at home, giving up against the run. Just, you got Philly coming in here next week, and then you got to go to Washington. Then you have to go to Minnesota. That's a heavy run team. Then you have the Colts, who are playing the Cowboys right now, pretty tough, heavy run team. And then you have the Eagles again. I mean, they're either going to have to get healthy. You can't really change schemes too much right now. You are what you are in terms of the identity of your offense, defense, and your team. But you have to find a way right now to clean up. I mean, he doesn't seem like the coach that's going to go and MF this and MF that and, you know, in a team meeting or anything, but there has to be some sort of new motivation or some sort of new energy, a breath of light into this team right now to clean up the drop balls, the penalties, the flex, whether it's flexing of the chest and in the run game and stopping the run, because I said I was nervous about this Washington Commanders team. I'm nervous about the rest of this schedule that comes up for this football team. So this team's really going to have to show and really earn their bread, earn their money on these next couple of games. And it's going to start with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Should we get the reaction of Twitter here? Should we hear what the fans are thinking right now?
Sure.
Good tweets first or bad tweets first?
Let's go to the cesspool.
Yeah, it is quite the cesspool is actually a good word for it. But remember, the ties do play a factor. We've seen a 9-6-1 team get over a 9-7 team. This could come down to division record. Giants haven't won a game in the division yet, so that Commanders game when they play them again in 2 weeks and the Commanders back-to-back games against the Giants, that rare schedule will be a big one in FedEx Field. All right, here we go. The cesspool begins. All right, S_Bleckman. So many chances to get a game-winning field goal and questionable play calling after the bomb to Slayton that he dropped. It's a big drop. We come back with 2 more. What? So he's
I love that they went back to him.
I
love that they went back to Slayton again. Questionable, you know, I thought it was PI originally, the replay, obviously it wasn't, but I love that they went back to him. Here's the thing we need to do on offense, guys. If you think about how Washington went into Philly and beat them, they ran with 2 runners, right? Both running backs, Robinson and Gibson. They ran them hard. The Giants have not involved Breida or Brightwell enough. And I'm telling you, it's going to take more than one back against Philly, against Washington next time they play them here in a couple of weeks, and to win some of these games down the stretch, because it's just, maybe they didn't even try Brightwell today. Maybe he catches them off guard. Maybe he catches them. Saquon's not in. You have to get him more carries or Breida. I'm just telling you, I don't know why they're so married to Saquon as the sole back for every play, for every freaking formation, but you've got to get someone else involved, because if you look how Philly lost, you got to take the blueprint. And that's what gives me a little bit of, you know, optimism when we play Philly this week, is that Washington went into their place and beat them with kind of a similar type offense. Now, we don't have McLaurin and some of those guys, but we do a lot of things very similarly to Washington, and I think we can do it. But you're going to have 2 or 3 backs. Well, are they counting Jones as the back, I guess, maybe, because he's the 70-yard carry guy? But I'd like to see, you know, Brightwell or Breida get more carries. I don't know if that's the magic pill, but I certainly think it could help.
Really quick, Jake, before you move, Paul, have you guys in the locker room, the beat writers, talked to Brightwell and Breida and asked them, do they feel they should get more carries, or why they aren't getting any carries? They didn't touch the ball today.
Writers like us, we never try to stir up things like that. Are you kidding? Brightwell is a tough guy, tough nut to crack, you know, and he doesn't really talk about his carries or anything.
Okay.
Breida is also kind of, you know, I do what they tell me. I think he's a little surprised that he is not, you know, I know he doesn't think he's going to get 15 carries a game, but, you know, I thought it might be 18 and 8 10? Or something like that, or 10 or 20 and 11. You know, I think Breida's a pretty good player. I think he has a little zip to him. Maybe maybe pass protection they don't like, or they're just, I don't know.
If you think about all of our great teams, it was always running back by committee to some extent. Whoever had the hot hand, Ahmad, Brandon, Ward, it was just kind of a mix. Ruben Drones had some
Danny
big
Ware.
games. Danny Ware. Man, you just keep going down the line. You have to get as many carries as Saquon has had this year. You just have to kind of maybe take some of the load off of him, because I feel like he's trying to do too much in a sense, because, he's the only guy they ever, put out there.
Yeah, you guys had Earth, Wind, and Fire. All we're asking for is Sonny and Cher, Jan and Dean. One of my favorites. My dad would play the cassettes. Cheech and Chong, or if we want to go down that route, there's a lot of combinations. All right, let's keep reading a few more. D_Exulanus, they need to quit playing so conservative on offense. I get they probably don't trust their personnel, but man, it has been bad lately. Guys, by Thursday's Blue Rush preview, Odell Beckham could be a Giant. We're going to know in about 48 hours what team he's going to. So maybe that stops the conservative offense.
So the _ Twitter user, they already answered their own question, right? I mean, personnel, right? It's personnel. I mean, that's why it's conservative. You cannot, I will say this. I thought they pass protected pretty well.
Yeah, they did.
Daniel had some good time today. That wasn't leaky, but just when you can't get the running game going, we've talked about it forever. As long as football's been around, you can't throw it.
And look, here's the thing. Brian Daboll's track record in the NFL is not conservative.
No.
It's just not. So this is not his DNA. His DNA this year is, I need to figure out how to win every single game, every single Sunday. And he is getting more conservative because he even mentioned it, talking about him being gambling earlier. He said, well, it's later in the season now. You know what that says to me? He knows more about the team. When he went for 2, early in the first game, it's like he didn't know much about this team. He knows more about them now. And I think that's not necessarily a good thing for his confidence in the offense.
Yep.
All right. Another one, Beanie017 also said far too conservative in the second half on offense, cost us a W. C. Harrison _NYG, coaching lost this game, tried to sit on a 7-point lead all half, played to not lose, horrible conservative offense in the second half.
Okay. Conservative offense. We just talked about it. With 1:45 left, they throw the ball deep down the field to the left side to Slayton, right? It's not an easy catch. He's a good player. He can make that catch, and he doesn't. The very next play, they throw the ball further on the right side. I think they're looking for a pass interference. They don't get it. I didn't think that was a great play. They used 28 seconds on that 3 and out. So that wasn't conservative. That was not good football, but it wasn't conservative.
Right.
I mean, the 3rd and 3 punt, that's conservative.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah, the Feliciano unsportsmanlike, that's not conservative. That's just bad luck, right? They would have had the field goal. They would have got the 2-score lead there.
The Darius Slayton drop, that's not conservative. That's a drop. So that's something on the player.
But certainly their personnel limits them in terms of what they can do.
Brandon, could Slayton have run through that a little more? He decided
he jumped too
early. He jumped too early.
Seemed like messed him up. He could have taken another step and maybe not had to make that kind of a jump or something.
I think if he would have taken if he would have taken one more step, then went up, it would have been a lot easier catch. But when you jump early, your body, it's like something in your head where you're trying to hang up there and your mind plays tricks with you.
Well, he
still
caught the ball
and brought it in.
He just
was
lost it
with it
on
the way
transfer.
down. It's just unfortunate for a guy who you're the go-to guy now. You're the go-to guy, but you gotta come down with that. Love that kid, love his story. Love how he's battling through adversity, but he'll be the first one to tell you, I got to make that play.
He did. Yeah. He also don't forget he was sick all week too. Credit to him. He was sick. He's
91 yards.
Yeah, he's getting he said dehydrated. He's worried about that. He was, that they had some sickness going through that locker room.
Yeah. Feels like everyone's sick right now. So much for the holiday season. Steve Holt, WFC said, costly missed tackle and some questionable play calling on offense. A game we needed to win with some difficult fixtures coming up. Feel that could be it for the playoff push. I think that's
must be one of our British viewers.
That's a great.
Yeah, Steve.
This is one of our
I had a
British
pint
viewers.
with them in London. I had a couple pints with them in London.
Yes.
When's next week's friendly is home?
No kidding. Anytime you hear those words, those the key buzzwords, they're British, which is awesome that they're listening to our show.
Well, so today was a draw, right? That's no big deal.
It was a draw.
It was a draw
all the time. This draws all the time.
No 3 points though in this group stage. No 3 points.
Yeah, it felt like a World Cup
Yeesh.
match. I actually ran into a listener at a hotel in the city. He asked for a picture. He said he loves Blue Rush. A shout out. I forgot his name, but shout out to him. What else do we got here? From Neil believes, I really wish they didn't play for the field goal at the end of the first half. Did that bother you guys at all?
The end of the first half.
At the end of the first half, yeah.
I just no, because going in tied versus turning the ball over to enter. I mean, who's your red zone guy? Like, we don't really have one in terms of throwing a jump ball. Bellinger's just coming back, but I don't know. The way the offensive line was playing, I was okay with that play. I think, Brian said, Coach Dable said they had a play, they just took it away, and Daniel made the right decision.
Look, there's a little bit of that. It's not all off Daniel Jones. You know what I mean? You can tell there's a little bit of him, the offense that, Dable doesn't just say, look, put it in Daniel's hands and we're fine. He'll figure it out. There's a little bit of a holdback, I think, still with this offense that he's kind of like, well, let's minimize the damage. We'll go for the field goal. It's just, they're just not there yet. And rightly so. He doesn't have the confidence in that unit that a coach needs to. It's just not there yet.
But that was a moment, like you said, Tynes, who's your red zone guy? That's a moment to see what we have in Isaiah Hodgins.
I think that kid's going to be a player. I think he really is going to be a player. He has a nice feel for getting open and space and toughness right after a tough, play against Detroit where he fumbles a ball. But man, I like him. There's something to him. I really think he'll be a Giant for a little while, the way he competes. But the way that interior line was playing, guys, I mean, poor Nick Gates, listen, he did not play well at all. He got abused all game long. Glowinski gave up a sack early. He settled down. But that interior was really to blame for a lot of the woes on offense. They just couldn't get anything going. The toss sweeps didn't work. I mean,
the sweeps are terrible.
Ooh, bad.
You're losing. I think they probably lost more yards than they gained on the sweeps.
2nd and 12 with this team is no good.
No,
it's not good for a lot of teams, but it's 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13.
You go back and look, they're at their best. Yeah. When they're getting 3 or 4 yards on the first play, whether it's Daniel or Saquon or whoever, and then they, start getting down the field. But when they're behind the sticks, it's trouble.
And Lawrence, like you said, Washington was 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 6, every play, every series, right?
You just
kind of looked at every time, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 5.
This is kind of the balance you want, right? Robinson had 21 carries for 96, and then Gibson had 9 carries for 40. That's kind of, what you would think the Giants would start. I don't know why they don't trust Brightwell or Breida. I don't get it, but I think that is, I'm not in that building, so I don't know, but I'm just a viewer and a fan. I think you have to start involving someone else in the run game.
A couple more. NYG_Pete. Weird game. Dayball needs to get on Kafka after that inexcusable play calling. And then Atlas Rise 56 said Joe Judge calling plays today. Killed that one.
I knew that was going to come out.
Is it that dramatic, guys? Is it Joe Judge out there?
No, it's not that bad.
I'm not. Again,
it's all personnel, right?
If you compare it to how aggressive that they've been throughout the season, I can see why someone say it looked a little Joe Judgy. It looked a little Joe Judgy. But it's just one of those again, they know the personnel. They know what they have. They had to be somewhat conservative this game.
Yeah. A couple of people had different opinion. Worse than a loss. Other person said better than a loss. In the end.
Worse than a loss?
I mean, it's better than a loss.
My God, Mary.
This is really like 2 losses. It's like 2 losses.
Jeez.
Yeah. And listen, NFC's up for grabs. Jimmy Garoppolo's out for the year too here. Yeah. So the 49ers were a major player.
Mr. Irrelevant came in and balled.
Yeah, he did.
Purdy. You know why? Because he has 6 weapons around him. It's pretty easy. Yeah. Not easy, but it's easier.
Yep.
So many Purdy puns for the San Francisco newspapers. Let's close with this. After this, I almost said loss. After this tie, do the Giants make the playoffs? Giants go.
I'm starting to get concerned. I really am.
Panic button concern? Panic button?
No, not yet. I just this opportunity stung. The Detroit one stung at home. Dallas, you expected kind of maybe them to lose that game with the personnel and the injuries. So I'm still hopeful. I'm not going to say no yet. I may change my mind after next week, but the Philly game was big. It's a lot bigger now.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what? I picked them to win 7 games this year, right? And as the first half was going on, I'm like, okay, well, that's a misread. They're going to win a lot more than that. How many wins do they have?
7.
I think they'll win more than 7, but not as much. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. You can break down all these things. The Eagles twice. I mean, the Eagles are the best team in football. They got them twice. It's Minnesota at Minnesota. I've been there. Skull, all that sound, all that stuff. I mean, that's hard.
Justin Jefferson, one guy just say, look what Jamar Chase did against the Chiefs today. I mean, it's a problem.
You better call Corey Webster and see if he's got
We need Webby.
One game.
I saw R-Dub McCorders today.
R-Dub. We need Antro. We need Butler. We need Aaron Ross. God. Sam Madison. I mean, pull him off the sidelines. He's coaching for the Chiefs. Dolphins now, but
they really need Jason Sehorn. That's who they really need.
Jason Sehorn. We'll get him. But Adoree Jackson's close, right? So hopefully this week, or maybe not.
I don't think this week. I don't.
Nah,
I don't.
Yeah. Well, AJ Brown needs a rest. He probably won't play next week.
Yeah.
All right, Brandon, close us out. Do the Giants.
They make the playoffs. They'll have 2 wins in them for sure. I think they'll beat the Colts and then the Eagles the last game, hoping that the Eagles rest their starters. Now with the 49ers out, there's really no one to kind of challenge them for that top spot in the NFC. So you're kind of hoping, but at the end of the day, I think they'll squeeze 1 win of a game that we won't expect them to win. But they got to go back to the original formula with being aggressive. And it's just like, hey, no one picked us to go to the playoffs anyway. There's no more conservative play calling or anything. You just got to go balls to the wall.